Cycling in London is not child's play. How to be a better cyclist. Listen to my show, only on Relaks Radio. I'm Kevin. Join me every Thursday, 5 p.m. Look forward to seeing you.
Welcome back to the show. It's your girl Sarah right here on Relax Radio. Super excited to be here on this beautiful Monday morning. All right. However, we're getting closer towards the end of the show, but don't worry because until then, I still have a lot more left to talk to you about, the pandemic, about people and their worries that they have with regard to the pandemic. But don't worry because I'm here to make sure that you're always informed and always aware about all of that. So you have nothing to worry about and you're always prepared for the uncertainties of the future. All right. Don't worry. That's what I'm here for. Now you tune into the sunrise with me, Sarah, and I'm here to keep you company all the way until 9 a.m. And the time for you is exactly, it's very close to 8:40 because the time's about 8:38 now. All right. So make sure you stay tuned because, we have a lot to be talking about. Now, before we head back or before we head into a conversation about what exactly worsened people's mental health during this pandemic, I want to very quickly remind you that you can get in touch with me on 078 All right. Share your thoughts, share your opinions, text me, call me, whatever it is that you want to do, because I want to know what your thoughts are, right? I want to know what you have to say and what you feel about this because that way we can share it with everyone else who's listening in and help everyone else understand and help everyone else to get a better idea of what is going on as well. Okay. So don't forget to do that. All right. And something else you can do actually is to go follow us on our socials. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. That way you can actually make sure that you're always informed and updated about the very latest that happens, not just here in the United Kingdom, but in fact all over the world as well. And our app too is available for download for free. So don't forget to go download our app because that, you can find our app on both the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. So you can listen into the conversation from anywhere in the world. And, we have different conversations from science to health to science, health, fitness, whatever it is that you want to hear about. We talk about all of it. So make sure you stay tuned. All right. Now let's actually head into our conversation because we really need to talk about, what exactly has worsened people's mental health during this pandemic, right? And I want to talk about everyone in general. I know the main focus right now are on young people, but let's talk about everyone in general and then sort of try to analyze and figure out why it's so bad for younger people out there. All right. So social isolation is in fact one thing that has worsened a lot of people's mental health. And let's face it, okay, if you actually think about it and if you actually really think about why social isolation has worsened people's mental health, the very simple answer to that question is that human beings are in fact social animals, right? That's what has been said about us. We're meant to go out and socialize. We're meant to go out, meet new people, hang out with new friends, make new friends, right? That's just what being human is about. But right now what has happened is that we really haven't been able to do that because we were basically stuck at home for about 1.5 years, right? I mean, not exactly 1.5 years, but you know how lockdown is. It happens, it doesn't happen, and you're constantly in this state of confusion, right? Because you're constantly moving back and forth, you're switching back and forth between your normal life and your pandemic life, right? Which is something that we've gotten accustomed to, right? And the truth is, even though you try to say, oh, you know what, I actually prefer staying at home or I prefer talking to my friends over the phone or whatnot, the truth is it's much easier, or the truth is that uh you feel much better when you meet your best friends in person rather than actually meeting them when rather than video calling them or just calling them on Zoom, right? That connection that you have with your friend when you meet them in person versus that connection you have with your friend when you're talking to them through the phone is very different, right? And that's just what has happened. Lockdown has brought social isolation to a lot of us, right? Basically, even to a lot of people who have been living alone and those who've had to shield themselves because of how dangerous the pandemic is, it's brought a lot of loneliness to a lot of people, right? And look, if you actually think about it, social isolation is an objective measure, right? And that might or might not lead to the subjective feeling of loneliness, but but surprisingly, a lot of people have, the number hasn't increased, but it's been pretty much consistent in terms of loneliness, right? Because a lot of people have felt that, my loneliness is pretty much similar to what it was before, or maybe we were just coming to terms with our loneliness. But surprisingly, the number of people who have been feeling lonely are in fact has in fact been consistent, right? Now, something else we need to talk about is obviously job and financial losses. But before we, have that conversation, I'm going to head into a small break, and after that, we will be talking about, job and financial losses. So make sure you stay tuned, because right now we're going to head into a small break. Welcome back to the show. It's our girl Sarah right here on Relax Radio. We're having a very interesting conversation, right? Because we're talking about mental health. We're talking about what exactly worsened mental health during this pandemic. And I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on it. So don't forget to share your thoughts and opinions, all right? Because the best way for you to do that is actually to text me on 078 all right? Share your thoughts with me, because it's going to be absolutely amazing, all right? And something else that you can actually do to make sure that your thoughts are being heard, your opinions are being heard, is actually to go follow us on our socials, right? Because that way you can get in touch with us more as well, and you can follow us on, or rather like us on Facebook, and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and share your thoughts and opinions with me, all right? So don't actually forget to do that, and don't forget to go follow us on TikTok, or rather go subscribe to our YouTube as well, because that way you can make sure that you're listening into the conversation live from wherever you are in the world. Okay, so don't forget to do that. Now, let's actually quickly get into a conversation, because obviously, we have a lot more left to talk about. What exactly has driven people's mental health? What exactly has made people's mental health much worse than what it was before the pandemic? All right. So, obviously, I was just going to talk about job and financial losses. Now, the economic impact of the lockdown has actually hit people unequally, right? Because this has actually caused immediate impacts on mental health. And the Mental Health Foundation actually reports that over a third of people in full-time work were actually concerned about losing their jobs. And even there was a lot of mental health impacts on people who are unemployed as well, because there were a lot of people who were unemployed and faced all of these impacts and faced these mental health problems during those times because they lost their job. A court actually reported not coping well with the stress of the pandemic, because that was twice as many as those in employment, because almost half were worried about not having enough food to meet their basic needs, and 1 in 5 had actually experienced suicidal thoughts, right? Which is very, very dangerous, right? So it's important to keep that in mind as well. Whereas housing insecurity and quality was also another reason as to why people's mental health worsen, right? People's housing and their ability to afford housing are in fact strong influences on mental health. The fact that you have a roof to live under is something that's really, really going to affect you, especially if you're a primary caretaker or your family depends on you and you lost your job and you're finding it hard to survive in this pandemic because you've lost your job, you might get kicked out of your house, you don't really have enough food to eat, then that's going to be very worrisome for you, right? People who rent have actually experienced greater financial impacts during the pandemic than those who actually own their own homes. Because if you actually think about it, if you are living in a rented space, then chances are for those people to earn money as well. Some people actually would increase the rent during the pandemic, and that would be really hard for you, especially if you yourself is struggling to make sure that your family survives, right? And this has actually worsened a lot of people's mental health as well. And in addition to all of that, the coping mechanisms that we have actually, we've lost most of those normal coping mechanisms that we have, right? Because initially, if you're going through problems, you would go and meet your friends, you would talk about that with your friends, right? So what the pandemic has done is they've taken away that component of coping with of coping with loss or coping with whatever it is. They've taken away that mechanism that we use to cope, right? And so things like going out with your family, out to exercise, meeting your friends, which has helped nearly half of adults out there, has actually impacted a lot of them because they haven't been able to actually go out and do what they used to do. All right. So it's important to keep that in mind as well, because although work is important, although people have been working from home and whatnot, they've actually lost a lot of these things that they used to be able to do. So in terms of children or other young people whose mental health was also affected during this pandemic, when you're seeing so much of chaos, when you're seeing so much of uncertainty around you, then obviously that's really going to get to you, right? Which I think is another reason as to why younger people are more focused on their futures, because they're beginning to realize that if I don't have a stable future, if I don't have stable income, then if another pandemic comes about, it's going to be completely over for me and my family, because I'm not going to have enough money to actually deal with all of those problems. So that's why younger people are much, much more concerned about their futures, right? But also, on the other hand, they're also having a lot of extra, they're facing a lot of pressure, they're facing a lot of burden, because they have to keep all of these things in their mind as well, right? So it's important for us to understand that when we're talking about young people, when we're talking about their health, the impact of them probably must have been much, much worse because of all of these because of them seeing their parents struggle, because of them seeing all of the other impacts it's had on the world, while also coming to terms with the fact that if they don't have a way of securing their future, if another pandemic comes along, it's probably going to be much, much worse for them. All right. Now, make sure you stay tuned, because we're going to head into a small break. And after that, we will be back to continue more about this. So until then, make sure you stay tuned.
The valuations that you place on an asset are always behind you. It's always in hindsight. It's never in front of you. And that's one of the challenges, right? Because you're always valuing what happened yesterday. And what you need is what's going to happen tomorrow. What am I saving or investing for? Why am I doing